Hi, Leslie. Leslie, I just noticed that on Twitter, we were just mentioned that there wasn't any sound in the webinar so far. I thought maybe it was my computer. So I don't know if we want to go back and if we want to check the audio settings. I don't know if you can hear me. If anybody can let me know if you hear me or not.
You know what? You're right. You know why you didn't hear me? Because remember, I told you I was logged in as myself and as Katie. I muted myself on my second computer and I muted Katie on my first computer.
Well, you know what? I was trying to figure out the perfect time to segue in, but maybe we can, if you'd like, maybe skim back over those other slides.
This is so funny.
Maybe we can rehash those and then I will get started.
Sorry, y'all. I will hit the highlights. Yeah, Katie just texted me and said, "Hey, Leslie, there's no sound." Okay, I'm going to skip over the part about who the EdTech coaches people are. Let me go back to the screen share right quick, y'all. This is so funny. Okay, I'm going to hit the highlights. Okay, this is what we do with the EdTech Coaches Network. Here we go. Let me get back so I can share my screen. Okay, not present to everyone. Am I sharing the right thing or the wrong thing? I am so not being an effective EdTech coach tonight, y'all. My apologies to everyone. Okay, there we go. Okay, so our Twitter chats. We have our monthly Twitter chats twice a month on the second Tuesday of the month at 1 o'clock and at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Hashtag ET Coaches. Same questions both times. We repeat the chat to make sure that everybody gets the same information. We are, oops, sorry about that, finishing up our second book study. We do 1 or 2 book studies per year. It just depends on what's going on. And this week is last week. We have a slow chat format where there's 1 question a day and you can respond at any time throughout the day. So if you've not joined, I would suggest that you go back, search for the hashtag, and you can see what's going on. Part of the webinar tonight, the reason that we are doing this is because we know that not everybody can go to ISTE. So we have brought the presenters to you by doing this webinar series. And I will mention what the next one is in just a moment. And we pick we have a conversation. The more popular ones are the ones that are repeated for everybody so that you can get the learning in your own home. Blogging buddies, if you would like to blog, you can, and you can share your blog with others and get other EdTech coaches to comment on your blog. If you've not started, this is a good way to start. We have a local conference meetup kit, and that is available. So you can go to our ISTE website and request that, and we will send you all of the information. And then you can tell other people what it's like. You can connect with other EdTech coaches, and it is a great way to network with one another. Speaking of networking, and I think this is how we discovered that the audio wasn't working because I don't know how to operate a computer, that you might want to follow one another so that you can connect with one another and use each other as resources. When ISTE refreshes standards, they sometimes will ask us to join in, so we will do that, and hopefully they will get around to refreshing the EdTech coaches, the standards for coaches, and then we will solicit your input and pass that information on to ISTE because we are the ones in the trenches doing it every day. Next month's EdTech Coaches Playground webinar will be our last one for the school year, and it is on March 12th. You can register at bit.ly ISTC webinar. I'm sorry, you can see that on the slide. I'm really having a difficult time tonight because I got flustered. And you know what they say about technology. When you need it to work, it doesn't work. And sometimes we just can't get it back together, but I will get it together. But the topic is on the grow, how to grow as an instructional technology coach. And that will be hosted by Leslie Burdine and Danielle Head. Tonight's topic is inclusivity, and I've been having a difficult time pronouncing that all evening, but I will go ahead and share with you the bio of our presenter. Our presenter this evening is Kelsey Pacer, and Kelsey is an instructional technology integrator with Chesterfield County Public Schools, which is a large school district just outside of Richmond, Virginia. She is currently in her second year in this position and supports 3 Title I elementary schools with meaningful technology integration. In the past 2 years, Kelsey has presented at the regional, state, and national conference levels. Prior to becoming a technology integrator, Kelsey taught 3rd and 4th grade for 5 years. During her time as a classroom teacher, she taught in a collaborative setting. She worked closely with special education teachers to augment learning and support all students' needs. Even in a position outside of the traditional classroom instruction, she still holds the idea of nurturing the inclusive environment close, and that's why she's sharing this presentation with us this evening. So I am going to stop sharing my screen, turn it over to Kelsey, and hopefully we can legitimately get this started this evening. Okay, so Kelsey, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, Leslie, thank you so much for my introduction and for reviewing all of the different great components of the EdTech Coaches Network and all the different resources and opportunities that are available. I am so excited to be with you here tonight. I am going to share my screen with you. Application share. Oh, this is not. I'm sorry, excuse me for 1 second. All right, I hope you can see my Google Slides deck. Can you see that, Leslie? Can you just chime in? Perfect, thank you so much. Great, so again, I'm so excited to be with you here. Sorry, I got a little discombobulated. I wanted to make sure I'm in the right, in the right window. So what I'm gonna be talking with you about tonight is renovating for inclusivity. So when I originally was getting this session together for the playground in Chicago this summer, I was getting my topic together and I had the idea of the theme for the playground in mind, which this year it was tools for coaches and kind of a construction building theme. And as I was getting my topic together, I realized how nicely the theme actually went with what I wanted to talk about. So as a classroom teacher, I worked really hard to develop these high quality learning experiences for my students. As Leslie mentioned in my bio, I worked for 5 years I taught 3rd and 4th grade. And during that time, 4 out of the 5 years I taught in a collaborative setting. So I was the general education teacher, but I also had a collaborative teacher, a special ed teacher in my room, either the majority of the time or just collaborating closely with me for pull in or push out. So as I've said, we worked really hard to make these experiences as engaging and relevant as possible. However, as reflective practitioners would tell you, I could definitely go back into my plans and change things up based on any factor that I wanted to zoom in on. Active engagement, what have you. If you just go back in with a specific lens, you can always target something that you can either improve or just try differently. So I wanted to think about these reflections and changes within the lens of inclusivity. Having an existing plan or having good bones of a lesson and how we can make tweaks to them to make what you're doing in your classroom even more meaningful and leverage learning for all of your students. So when I say inclusivity, I'm referring to how all students can be supported in learning. So this aligns really nicely with the ideas of universal design and least restrictive environment, but I'm going to take this a little more broadly. So in the presentation I'm about to share, I'm going to kind of be including all students in the process. So we should be planning for students who also might have differences physically, mentally, and behaviorally or socially, even bringing in students who might be language learners. So what I would like to do is I'm going to share with you my website that I made for the ISTE Playground. So I don't know if any of you went to ISTE this year. This was my first ISTE, and so my first kind of presenting experience. at this level. And the playground was set up so that it was very casual. And what I had prepared was a website, and people came up to my table and I was like, hello, how's it going? Let's check out my website and show you some things that resonate with me that I hope work for you and you can take back to your teachers as a coach. So what I'm going to share with you right now is the bit.ly to go to my website. So if you'll go to this ISTE, lovely, what a blend, bit.ly, ISTE Renovate, it is case sensitive, so if you don't use bit.lys too often, just be careful with that capital. If you can head over to this bit.ly link, it will take you straight to my Google site. So I'm going to give you just a minute to head on over. If you can type that on in, if you'd like to look at it with me. If not, I will be sharing it on my screen. And again, Leslie, if you'd like to put that in the maybe in the chat window, just so if somebody misses it, they can go back to it at their leisure. Thank you. I think I'm gonna head on over to my website. So I'm gonna toggle on over. So here we are on my ISTE site. I love a good theme, and once I realized how nicely this all jived together, I got very excited. I made everything renovation themed. I was kind of thinking fixer-upper. So again, when I say renovating, I'm taking existing plans or existing ideas and how you can tweak them to really even reach all of your learners even more effectively. So getting down into the nitty gritty, looking at your students on an individual level and what kinds of little boosts could you include, whether they're techie or not techie. So on this front page, just kind of introducing myself. Again, this is a quick kind of overview of my site. I'm happy to answer any questions, but if you'd like at any point to email me or send me a tweet, I'm here. I'd love to chat. I like meeting people. I like learning about what you're doing. And this website is public facing, obviously. If you have any teachers or other coaches or administrators who'd be interested in something along these lines, feel free to share the link. So I kind of laid out this website for the different steps, first thinking about planning, then kind of breaking it down, looking at what you already have, working backwards from there. And then, since it's so important that you think about in technology integration, in any area, inclusivity, what have you, that the tool it's supposed to complement what you're learning or what you're doing. So I want to talk about the overall pedagogy and the practice of instructional design with this idea, and then finally going into the different tools and resources that might help you accomplish this. So on the left side, you can see my navigation, very themed again. I'm going to click on preliminary inspections. This is just a quick overview. I'm sure you are fully cognizant of this, but there are a lot of great tools out there, apps and websites and all sorts of things, software, hardware. But before you touch any of that, you always just want to make sure to use your professional judgment and check that it would be approved and appropriate in wherever you work. So I'm going to go over to laying out plans. And this is where, when I say renovate, especially coming from the coaching perspective and working with the phenomenal teachers that I do, I know for a fact that if you tell someone, all right, we are going to think about something from a whole new perspective, and we are going to start from scratch and do this new thing, a lot of people will just completely shut down. It's overwhelming. There's already a lot on your plate. I would understand that. I'm sure you understand that for your teachers as well. What I would encourage is saying, let's look at something you've already done. Whether you think it's phenomenal, whether you think it was, it went all right, or whether you think, man, let me really revisit the drawing board. And how can we look at this today? Let's look at it in let's think about the students in your class. How can we hone in even more closely on what they need and how you can plan for that intentionally for the next time that you teach this kind of lesson? So what I have here is just kind of a step-by-step for a teacher. Again, this website can be used for you as a coach where you could kind of talk a teacher through these, or if you had a teacher that you're like, hey, check this out, or even a collaborative teacher, a special ed team, if you'd like to share this and kind of come up with this as more of a coaching strategy for them, this is all readily available. I have the 5 different steps listed here. I don't want to read them perfectly for you. You can read. I linked on an organizer that I created. But this is just an idea for how someone could take a unit and tweak it to add in some more specific student needs and what possible tools or resources you could use to address those needs on an individual student level. This is not necessary. Feel free to use, if your teachers have paper plans, write all over them with a different color pen. If they have Google Docs, comment away. If they have Plan Book, just any type of lesson plan that's already existing. This is just an idea of something, if you wanted an organizer, here is an organizer. So something that I do want to point out is that a huge part of this in this collaborative process is working with other people. It's easy to look at things and think, you know what, I've looked at it as much as I can. These are my ideas. Sometimes it just takes a fresh set of eyes or a fresh, an ear to listen to you and just spitball ideas, and you can come up with something amazing. You're going to notice that a couple times in what I'm about to show you, but I think it's really important and worth saying, you can't do this alone. You don't want to be a silo. So we've talked about precautions. We've talked about looking at your plans and deciding, okay, this is what I'd like to change. My 3 sections that are the rest of this website have to do with different tools and resources. So again, I themed them with the building theme, but they each actually have another underlying theme as well. So if we look at beams for building understanding, this is really talking about scaffolding and differentiation. So depending on your school system and what your devices are, you might notice that actually a lot of what I have on this website is meant for Chromebooks. We are an extremely Chromebook heavy district. I did try to think more comprehensively and add in some apps for districts that use iPads, but in general, a lot of these ideas that I have listed here, I'm hoping that they would be transferable to what you're using in your district. So again, collaboration, if you have collab teachers, or if you know that your teachers are working with one another and kind of sharing the same students, it is a big deal and extremely beneficial to be sharing the same digital classroom, not just physical, and not just the same, physical workflow where you're sharing papers and offering one another little tips on the fly, making sure that you can also do that on that digital workflow as well. So a huge way to do that is just to make sure that all teachers who are represented in that student's learning experience are in the know in the same digital classroom. So whether it's Google Classroom, whether you have a learning management system like Canvas or Schoology, trying to keep everybody in the same loop and working together like a well-oiled machine is huge. I've added some websites that we've used that have embedded vocabulary support or reading level differentiation. So Newsella, encyclopedia resources, I hope your district has them. If they don't, maybe look into them. One of my favorites that I want to point out that I love for vocabulary, and it has a built-in read aloud, is Wonderopolis. If you haven't seen this, get ready because it's very exciting. So when I think about high interest websites, especially for, honestly, I think you could use this K-8, if not higher. This website is all different questions that children have thought of. And I'll tell you, if you haven't seen this website, you can get sucked into it. And as an adult, it has wonders of these questions, and then experts write answers about it. So what I really like about this is that this website has text, it has videos, it has pictures, and it also has, if you notice right here where my cursor is, there is a read aloud option. There's also LinkedIn articles to help build background information. And all of these words that are highlighted in yellow are considered power vocabulary. And you can see that if a student's reading and is having a little bit of trouble, they can go on their own, hover over it, and get a little bit of extra information that they need, which kind of builds in that little scaffolding into this extremely high interest article without having to kind of disrupt the flow of what they're doing, which I love. I highly recommend it, especially for upper elementary, if you're going to use it as a station or anything along those lines. So that's one of my favorites. Something else that's one of my favorites is Nearpod. I can't stop talking about Nearpod. One of my favorite things about Nearpod is the slide tool, how you can add audio to that as well. So a real example, which is perfect, that actually happened in a very timely manner, is that one of my good friends on the integrator team with me, Becky Poljak, she shared this phenomenal Arctic animals Nearpod with me, and I'm going to pull it up very quickly, hopefully. All right, so I'm going to go into Nearpod, and she shared this amazing Nearpod with me. And you can see here that I'm just going to preview it for you very quickly. It's loading up, of course. Again, the technology can smell my fear. You might have to believe me. But she's made this fantastic Nearpod, and it had, whew, thank you. So she's made this Nearpod, and it's just so engaging. It was originally intended for 2nd grade, but I feel like it could be scaled up a little tiny bit older or a little bit younger. So it has closed passages, it has tons of videos. And she said this to me, and I was like, this is amazing, Beck. Congratulations. Like, you did such an awesome job, a 360. And then as we were moving through it, I noticed that there were a couple of slides that if you had a student who was working on this as a student-paced station or activity, they might have a little trouble. I'm going to come to the one that like, for example, a lemming. If you had a student who had a little bit of difficulty decoding the word lemming, that could stop them right there for a while. They might take too much time trying to figure out what that word at the top is and not taking that information down in the bulleted area. So it took me 2 seconds in this slide to make an audio that if the student needed it as a little bit of support in the middle of their lesson, they can just click on it and they'll hear this.
Lemmings live alone. They weigh up to 4 ounces. They are 3 to 6 inches long, and they do not hibernate.
Again, if a student is doing this on their own, on a student paced, no one else needs to know if they listen to it or not. It's very discreet down at the bottom of the slide. And again, throughout this presentation, for the slides that I thought were either text heavy or just there was a word on it that was very much a bit overwhelming possibly, I added the audio down at the bottom. It is very easy to do that. I will show you. If you go into Edit, and I go to any of these slides I can see here. For example, if I decided I wanted to add audio to this slide, go into it. It's the slide setup here. And then down at the bottom, it has new audio. So you can either add a previously recorded audio file or the audio recorder, which is what I do. It's beta, but it has worked beautifully for me every time that I've needed it. You would just click and it allows you to start recording audio, and it inserts immediately in that discrete little link at the bottom of the slide. So that's just a really good example of being able to quickly kind of tailor something to be more, if your student needs a little bit of that read aloud, it can be right there and you can just whip it up very quickly. So I'm going to go back to this. So again, I could talk all day about Nearpod. I'm not going to do that to you. If you have any questions about it, 100% please let me know. Write it in the chat. Leslie will let me know what people are asking about. And I put some more ideas of things that I love using in Nearpod on this site as well. So I'm going to move on again to some more ideas for adding in some visuals and auditory and physical supports. So I'm sure, I don't want to insult you, you might be using voice typing in Google Docs. As a personal experience, I had a student in my classroom when I was a 4th grade teacher who could tell the most phenomenal stories, but as soon as they tried to put pencil to paper, they completely shut down. Voice typing in Google Docs changed their life. So if you have not tried that, it's in Tools, it's the voice typing tool. Click it, allow the microphone, and it records pretty nicely to your voice. If you're trying to do an acronym, sometimes it has a hard time, but just tell them to speak clearly and try to avoid acronyms, and it should be okay. Kids don't use them as much, I hope. Vocaroo, if you need a quick little blurb of information, you can use YouTube for closed captioning. Really, I put a lot of kind of small chunks of information on here for things that you can consider. So please feel free to check these out. And then I'm just going to scooch because I know I don't have a whole lot of time, and I'd like to make sure there's enough time for you to either check out this website or ask me some questions. I'm going to kind of skim ahead and head over to the stability section. So when I was talking about stability, I'm thinking about assessment. So when you think about stability, I'm trying to understand, do students have a foundation of knowledge? So these are just some ideas for capturing how students are understanding things. So huge fan of portfolios, kind of amassing that work over time, not looking at a single snapshot or a single type of assessment to look at learning, looking at it over time, helping kids kind of decide, have that choice in what they think really shows what they understand or don't understand. I put some ideas for ways to kind of collect this information. Of course, Google Forms quizzes. I linked in a really great presentation from one of the other integrators in my district, Carrie Kubler, for branched form quizzes. It's kind of a next step in using the forms quizzes. And then, of course, Flipgrid, Nearpod, again, and then Quizlet. Another idea that kind of links in between kind of building and the supports and the assessments that we've recently started using that has really excited me for read aloud tests is the screen recorder feature in Active Inspire. If you haven't tried that out and you have Active Inspire, please check it out. I am in the process of making a video and a handout, and I'm actually going to be sticking it on this website because, again, this is a live website. So that's going to be on here. So if you have Active Inspire, please be on the lookout for that. It makes a huge difference because it makes a movie file and you can be looking at a test or a study guide and talking through it, and the students can refer back to it. So that's on the kind of on the up and up. It will be there. Stay tuned. And along those lines, if there's something that you think I should add or you have an idea that I can add to this website, please let me know because I'd love to keep this relevant and useful. I know I had a lot of emails of people saying, this is great. I can't wait to try this or check this out. And I'd like to keep this as helpful as possible. So with that being said, I think I am all set showing my piece of this presentation. And I'd love to answer any questions that have come up. So I'm going to stop screen sharing, I hope. Okay, I think I turned it off. Leslie, did I turn it off?
Indeed, you did. Can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Okay, awesome. We've had just so far one question.
Sure.
And I'm hoping we will get more. But I'm going to go ahead and pose it to you. There's a conversation going on in the chat where the question is being answered. But if you have another perspective, since you are actually in the classroom or you've been in the classroom doing it, and this is, and I did mention this in the chat, this is my question. I'll just put it out there. I'm being honest. How can you adapt work for a student who is hearing and speech impaired? The young man that I'm getting on Friday, from what I understand, for those, I'm a foster parent, so I'm getting a new child Friday, and he does not hear, and because he's not been able to hear, his speech is impaired. So what could a teacher do for him, or for that matter, what can I do for him at home to help him get, his work done and whatnot?
That's a great question because I feel like at a certain point, there's a line between building in the inclusive practices and assistive technology. Okay. Which I feel like it's if there is a hard of hearing and the related speech impairment, I think there are tools that can absolutely be offered. And I'm not an expert. I was a classroom teacher. I was not a special ed. I was just a general ed classroom teacher. I was not a special ed teacher, and I did not have that experience while I was in the classroom. But I would venture to say that would be more along the lines of assistive technology. I can think more on it. I would love to kind of stew and see what I can come up with. So I'm going to write that down on my little task list.
In the chat, Greg
I'd love
and
to hear what other
Karen
people have to say.
mentioned that tools like Microsoft Translator, and we're actually a Google district, Google Translate could assist since it would create captions automatically and the student could type back in return. And there's also a OneNote collection of accessibility tools by area of need, which I did not know. I've got Microsoft stuff at home, but our district is a Google one. So that's something that I will need to investigate further. Let's see. Do we have any other questions for Kelsey? I'm going over. People have commented that they love voice typing in Google Doc. Yeah. And that they love that dictation is now in Word Online as well. And Penny upvoted Nearpod, and I think I've not found anybody who does not like Nearpod. Nearpod is absolutely fantastic.
Yes, absolutely. That'll get me off track in about 2 seconds.
Me too. I'll be honest, and we were able to get some of the Nearpod headsets for the virtual reality, and that is a lot of fun as well. So because I have access to Nearpod, I did bring that home for the last young man who was living at my house. Okay. Oh, Greg and Karen, awesome. They said, feel free to DM me on Twitter if you need ideas. So, I love this community that we have with EdTech coaches, because not only am I getting professional help, I'm getting personal help. So yes, this is phenomenal. I dropped the link to Kelsey's website. It's the actual web address. So please feel free to look over that. And if there aren't any more questions, then I am going to go back and share my screen so that we can wrap this up and everybody can get back to what they are doing. And Kelsey, this has been phenomenal and very informational. So thank you for what you have done for us. Very much appreciated. And let me make sure that I am sharing my screen, because I think I told you all, well, you probably didn't hear me, but I did say earlier that I was having some technical difficulties because this is the first time that I have actually done this. Normally Katie does it, but Katie is pursuing a doctorate degree. So she entrusted me to do this, and I'm not so sure that was the best idea. So let's see if I can get the last couple of slides up. Here we go. Okay, so if you need credit for your district showing that you participated in this professional learning experience, if you would go to the bit.ly link that is there, you can give feedback, and feel free to say that Leslie does not know how to operate technology. We want you to be honest, but if you need contact hour information, that can be sent to you. So please go to bit.ly/ETC webinar feedback. Again, that is bit.ly/ETC webinar feedback. And if you've got suggestions for anything, feel free. Anything that you would like to see in the future, what will happen is, and we actually have the call for proposals out right now. So if you're going to be at ISTE and you would like to present in our playground, go ahead and get a proposal in. The link has been in our Twitter chat, and I know for sure it'll be there Friday because I'm moderating the last day of the book study. And it's been there pretty much every day, and it's also in our ISTE community. But if you're going to be there, apply. It's a wonderful way to meet new people. And then at the end of the summer, we get together and we pick the ones that we would like to reshare. So if there's something that you would like to share at ISTE and possibly again in a webinar, mention that on the feedback form. Our next one will be on March 12th on the Grow, How to Grow as an Instructional Technology Coach. And the link is there. So you can go to bit.ly/ISTE webinar, ETC webinars to register for that. And we would love for you to do that. And we earlier mentioned that we have the Remind group. So if you have a tendency to forget things, please join the Remind group and you will get reminders about the webinars and everything else that we do. But we do have one or two more questions. It says, has VR, AR help with inclusivity?
So that's actually a really good question. Again, this is another topic that you don't really want to get me started on. However, it has. It actually has just started. I feel that right now I'm actually in grad school for my master's in educational technology. And part of that is looking at, I had a project where I was looking at, and this is kind of me off on a tangent, but I was looking at virtual reality and its place in K-12 education. And right now we're on the cusp of it becoming a major thing. I'm sure you've seen it. And just like Leslie said, talking about the Nearpod system, the Google system, Oculus, there are ways to take this immersive reality and use it to put students who might have social anxieties or be on the autism spectrum, where they can be in an environment where they can practice these different social cues and practice making conversations. And even students who might be receiving like OT services, they might be able to practice hand movements and trying to grab things and trying to do little simulations. Right now, just based on what I have seen in the research, it's very expensive. In case I'm sure you could understand that. But if you have students who don't have a lot of background that you want to help build it and support it, whether they are receiving any sort of specific services or not, in that Nearpod that I showed, there was a Nearpod 360 view of Antarctica, just to give a visual to help students kind of have something to grasp. You can use, even without goggles, that will give a lot more of something to stand on, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I think I went off on a way like higher of nothing that I've seen yet in the classroom as a technology integrator, but that's definitely on the horizon. I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the next 5 years.
I think you're right. And Karen mentioned in the YouTube chat, social stories for interaction practice for students with autism. Microsoft released immersive reader in VR for distraction, which I did not know. Like I said, we're a Google district, and I sometimes wonder if we're missing things by limiting ourselves. And I don't want any Google people to hear me, because I am a Google trainer and educator and innovator. But I think that sometimes, one company has something that the other one needs, and we miss the boat sometimes. And we don't want to do that, because we want our kids to get the best possible experience, and we may need to have both things. And Karen says that their district is hybrid, which I think that's a good idea, but we made the decision to go with Google because it was free and it saved money.
That's really interesting. That's really, I haven't, because we're a Google district as well, but that's awesome. I'm so glad she shared that. I think it's awesome that I can't really see the chat right now, but I love that everyone's kind of bringing up ideas and helping one another. And I will definitely check in when I can look at this afterwards. And if y'all can drop your Twitter handles, I'd love to follow you and chat with and kind of network with one another. That'd be great. And I'll drop mine in the chat as well.
We can do that. I am excited about this because, like I mentioned, I'm getting my child on Friday, and I want to make sure that I can do as much for him as possible. And our special education department quite often will come to us and they'll ask, well, my background was as a high school English teacher. My colleague was an elementary teacher. So there are just some things that we don't know. And that's one of the things that I want to tackle when I go to ISTE, is finding some resources to bring back to our district. Okay, in the chat it says, we are at Office 365 school and feel the same way about missing Google Apps. And we are getting some Twitter handles dropped in the chat. So this is going to be great for us to connect with one another. I love this community, y'all. I'm sorry. I get so excited about this.
That's exciting. I can't wait.
Okay, more Twitter handles are being dropped in the chat, and this is our last call for questions. Are there any more questions for Kelsey? And while we're waiting, if anybody is typing a question, Kelsey, I do again want to thank you on behalf of the EdTech Coaches Leadership Team. We appreciate the fact that you were at ISTE and presented in our playground, and we are so glad that you agreed to share this with us, because I can safely say that I have learned a lot tonight, and I think that I would speak for the others as well. This is something that we all need to know about, and we probably we don't know as much as we do, except we do have, Karen says, I was an elementary and special ed teacher, and I'm guessing I'm talking to Karen still, or Karen's in the chat, and married a secondary teacher, which, so they have a lot of knowledge in their house. That is phenomenal.
Well, that is amazing. I can't wait to see what they've written. Again, thank you so much for having me. I am just honored that y'all reached out to allow me to do this webinar. I mean, I was super excited for my first ISTE to get to do the playground. So again, I'm always more than happy to share what I know, but I know, again, just it's being exemplified in the chat that there's so much more information out there. So I really look forward to continuing to learn and grow with all of you. So thank you.
You're welcome. And just as a reminder, I did say that we are taking applications for the playground, and I do believe that we are still also taking applications for our ISTE EdTech Coaches PLN Award winner, that you get recognized at ISTE. And they've made a couple of changes. I do believe that you get membership for a year. And this year, as an added incentive, there is a $100 cash prize to each PLN award winner. So if you would like to nominate yourself, you can find that information in our ISTE PLN group. The deadline is coming up quickly, so please nominate yourself. There is nothing wrong with giving yourself a pat on the back and recognizing yourself for the work that you do. And we would like to recognize you as well. Okay, so Greg and Karen started a blog and a YouTube channel last fall. So they, if you want to drop that link in there, that would be awesome, so that we can follow that. So please do join, and there aren't any more questions, but if Karen, if you could drop that link in there, we would love to follow you so that we can see new content and everybody can continue to learn from one another. And one more time, Kelsey, thank you so very much. And for all of you who have been listening and didn't get the audio there at the beginning, I apologize. And if you hadn't picked up on this, y'all, I'm not Katie. Katie is in school. This is Leslie. But Katie does a phenomenal job because she's been doing it for us for quite a while. We thank you for joining, and I am going to stop the broadcast. If you would like to continue the conversation on Twitter, please feel free to do so. Thanks you all, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.